Okay, so my name is Marty. I was placed here in 1980 and spent 7 years here. And I was abused physically, sexually, mentally by the sisters, staff, some of the older children, as well as Father Fitzgerald, who was here. The sisters have been in existence here since 1927, claiming to have done good work for our people and other children. And they quietly sell out to Catholic Social Services without saying goodbye or hurrah to the community, because they know that they are accountable for many lives disrupted and damaged and harmed by the facility. My grandfather, who was abandoned by his parents in 1943, was adopted out through the Atonement Home. The nuns held the files here up until 1990, when they destroyed everything. That was prior to the investigation for residential schools. I know this because I worked here as a maintenance assistant and worked next door for the older sisters. I was also responsible for helping carry down box after box after box of files to the side here to the incinerator to burn them. And it wasn't until I asked to look at my grandfather's file that Sister Paul Marie, who was in charge, pulled me off of that and sent me next door, which I was never to see those files again. So there's a lot of hidden history here and a lot of harms. When we were kids, the top floor we'd be watching TV and we could hear some of our people coming down with a shopping cart and the sound of whiskey bottles and whatnot, wine bottles bouncing around. They would stop and you would hear, "You fuckers ruined our lives." And you would hear smash, smash, smash as they stopped at the front, throwing the whiskey bottles and wine bottles at the front of the building, while the sisters told us older boys, "Gather the little kids and get them away from the windows." That's how common it was. So they were well knowledgeable about the abuse that many of us suffered here, and quietly transferred the shelter, the women's shelter, over to Catholic Social Services. The reason they did that is they were confronted by shelter staff with letters from people who were seeking help in the shelter, who themselves had to look out the window and see the building that they were sexually abused in as children. The nuns told the staff from the shelter, "Keep your mouth shut, destroy those letters, and you're never to speak of this again." Shortly after, the sisters transferred the authority over to Catholic Social Services. I reached out to Catholic Social Services, telling them everything and telling them I have the physical letters. Their response to me was, when you filed a class action against child welfare, we are protected under the umbrella of the class action. So even to this day, Catholic Social Services does not want to accept responsibility for even the women that were abused, that are seeking help in that shelter, who were children themselves abused in this facility. So there's a lot of hiddenness. And when I found out that the gas line and the power and everything were cut, because my daughter's a nurse just up the block at Norwood Clinic, she notified me and I started to come immediately. I asked questions next door, one of the shelter staff, who informed me, as far as they knew, it was supposed to be torn down a long time ago. So they're quietly doing it, trying to hide the abuse and the past and the history. By just doing that is clear indication. The Archbishop and the Archdiocese know and promised an investigation prior to the Pope coming. Once the Pope left, I never heard a damn thing back. They refused to answer my emails. My mother was abused in the facility where they are now. It was called the Good Shepherd Home for Girls. She was abused where the Archbishop resides his head, and where the Pope slept. Numerous girls, young girls, were sexually abused and physically abused. Elder Taz was one of them. She was there with my mother at the time. There was numerous other people. Now that generational trauma has lasted until this day. There's the residential school effect, but then there's also the placement of child welfare. Most of us Métis and First Nations children who were neglected at the hands of the Alberta government and their agents, who placed us here and neglected to listen to our concerns about our harms and how we were being treated. So to bring light in any form to this building, again, is necessary for people to actually wake up and see what happened. But what they're doing now is they're hiding it from the rest of the people. There's neighbors here who never knew what happened in this building, but the memories will live with me. I have 4 adult children. Youngest is 26, the oldest is 31. I'll make sure my grandchildren, I have 5 of them, they will not know what happened here. They will always remember. Because as long as I'm alive and they're alive, they will be around to remember and tell the stories of the abuse that happened to these people. And we were all children, innocent children. We were placed here because the government said our parents were not good enough to look after us and placed us in places where they did these things to us. So that's why I'm here. And I'll continue to be here. Even when I'm an 80-year-old man, I will still walk by this facility and leave tobacco down and my prayers up.
For sure. Thank you, brother. For sure. Thank you.
Hi.